Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. Now, this time of year, we all look for colour and we celebrate it quite rightly. But actually, one of my favourite places in the garden on a hot summer's day are the grass borders. They're both cool, and yet they catch the light, and because they move very easily in the slightest breath of wind, they make it shift and dance too. And it's a good place to be. But I love the height that you get at this time of year and for the rest of the year here in the grass borders. And there's a little bit of colour coming through. The nymphophorus and the heleniums pushing towards the edge so that when it arrives on the shores of the jewel garden, it can then just flame away into full summer glory. This week we visit a Rothschild garden that maintains the old tradition of self-sufficiency in fruit and vegetables on a grand scale.
The standards of fruit and veg and food are very high, so everything is particularly delicious.
Formal bedding really is not one of the most fashionable forms of garden design. But Jo has been in search of those giving a new twist to this very Victorian display.
Sometimes you have to throw tradition out the window, do your own thing, and just enjoy it.
And today I shall be doing summer pruning of my fruit, as well as cutting the grass so I can maximise next year's wildflowers. It's time to cut the long grass here on the cricket pitch. And for about 6 weeks to 8 weeks, the grass looks really pretty. Different grasses, clovers, plantains, and equally importantly, it's fantastic for wildlife. But to maintain it and to maintain wildflowers, if you want them in them, you must cut the grass and remove it. The best time to do that is midsummer, the end of June to the end of July. It's the rhythm of haymaking. Really long grass can be tough to cut and will defeat almost all ordinary lawn mowers. You can hire heavy mowers, you can use a strimmer, a scythe, shears, anything that you've got to hand that will take the majority of the grass off. That's the first pass. What you have to do, and this really is essential, is rake it all up. If you leave any grass on the ground, it will decompose and feed nitrogen back into the soil, which in turn will encourage the grass to grow more vigorously, and that will outcompete any wildflowers, which is not what we want. Cut the grass again, ideally with a mower with a collector, as close and as tight as you can, to expose patches of bare soil. Now, if I just scratch that, you can see it looks terrible, which is exactly what I want. The bare soil is ideal for seeds that will need to germinate. And these are the seeds of a plant called yellow rattle. It's a lovely little wildflower. When the seeds dry, they rattle in their pods. And it's partially parasitic on grass. So it feeds off grass roots and also inhibits grass growth. It doesn't stop it, but just weakens it. And that's great because it means that wildflowers, which are always less robust than grass, have a chance. Most wildflower meadows fail because the grass gets too strong. And this helps level the playing field. Now, it needs bare soil, hence I don't mind having the bare patches on the grass, and you need to sow them when they're fresh. So if you're going to do this, buy the seed sometime in the next couple of months. They will not germinate till next spring, but they need to be on the ground. Once you've got them, the seed will spread, so don't worry if it's a bit thin. So when I sow them, I'm not going to try and do it evenly. I'm just going to scatter a little bit of seed, and I'll do this all over the area. But here, I can just scatter the seed like that. And the important thing is that they have contact with the soil. So actually step all over it. Stamp them in. And hopefully some will germinate and they will spread, and that will all contribute to this lovely interwoven tapestry of grass and wildflowers. Now, some people don't grow any flowers at all. I know people who regard anything other than veg as not proper gardening. Well, those of us who do grow some veg like to think we can be fairly self-sufficient sometimes. But we went to visit a garden that prides itself on being completely self-sufficient all of the time. And this is the creation of the renowned garden designer, Mary Keane.
It's the private garden of Lord Rothschild and his family, growing vegetables, fruit, cut flowers, and it's wonderful. I first got involved about 25 years ago, and it was all in quite a rundown state. I mean, it was kind of semi-market garden, collapsy greenhouses. It kind of felt hopeless. And Paul, who grows the vegetables and has been here for 30 years, remembers one huge plot.
Oh, it's changed an enormous amount. We used to get the tractor and ploughing to do it. Yeah, there's not much we don't grow. Runner beans are coming in now, French beans. We've got the winter leeks planted. There's about 4 or 5 different savoys, red cabbage, coleslaw cabbage, summer cabbage. Well, in the actual cabbage square, there's probably over 1,000 plants. You couldn't wish for a better place to work, really. I wouldn't have been here 36 years otherwise.
Thought the thing here was to make it much more gardener-focused. Sue Dickinson, the head gardener, I met her working at the old rectory in Burfield. And I knew then she was an absolutely amazing, world-class gardener. And so I've just counted, there are 9 on that thing there. Why don't I get 9 pears on my tree?
Well, I think this year the weather conditions were so good when the fruit was setting, but it's not necessarily a good thing to have so many fruit in a bunch. We should have probably come along and thinned them, but sometimes life is too short.
We worked on the design together. Lord Rothschild likes things quite overscale, so the paths are huge, so that 7 people can walk down them. And it all seems quite grand, but it is a grand place, and you have to go with that. And then on the pruning, I mean, I know on the walls, the espaliers, you prune them in the summer to let the sun get to the fruit. But here, where they're growing underneath, the sun can't reach. Does that matter?
Mary, it's not like other tunnels in the fact that you designed it to have these gaps in between.
I like the gaps.
So
we designed it together, I seem to remember, on a stepladder with a chair.
so often in pear and apple tunnels, the trees meet. And
yes.
You said, no, I'd like to see through.
Sue was incredibly quick to see what the spirit of this place was. I did suggest to her that it might be nice to grow the cut flowers among the vegetables like a French garden. She was quite strict about that and said certainly not.
This is in the tomato house. This section is the experimental tomatoes, ones that we haven't grown before, that we're trying to find something with better flavour or texture. This yellow one's very good, yellow perfection. And then we've got this Italian San Marzano, which is very good for cooking, makes very good pasta sauce and passata. We come into the large tomato house, which is a variety called Furline. When they're potted up at the end of May, they have a layer of horse manure at the bottom, then compost, and then once they've been growing about 6 weeks, they're fed with a high nitrogen feed, which we give them until they reach the top of the cane, and then we change to a high potash feed.
I like the little ones best, I think, actually. I mean, they're the ones you can eat quickly.
Yes.
The standards of fruit and veg and food are very high, so everything is particularly delicious. It's looking pretty good, Sue. Well, it's such a treat for me working in a place which goes on getting better.
We are a team of 8 gardeners. All the gardeners have their own greenhouses to look after. Paul looks after the veg garden.
And everybody does a bit of digging.
Yeah, you know, in the winter, everybody goes where the work is.
They don't buy any fruit, veg, flowers for the house. And that self-sufficiency, which all estates, I think, before the First World War, is simply ceased to exist. This is unique. And I enjoy the design projects where I do have a continuing interest in a garden, but they've never, ever lasted as long or turned out as well as this one.
I think anybody who grows any vegetable is going to feel some envy there. A greenhouse just devoted to different types of tomato and 1,000 cabbages. Wonderful. Now here on the mound, it's framed by espalier pears. And these form the structure, a kind of living fence. And now is absolutely the best time to summer prune any trained fruit. And that's espaliers, cordons, fans, any type of fruit that isn't growing naturally. These espalier pears were moved last year. They're semi-mature and they're growing quite slowly, but it's important at every stage to keep that training going. Now, espalier, just to make clear, is when you have a single stem coming up here and then side lateral growths growing like that, and then from that, the flowering spurs grow up, which will give you the fruit. But in terms of training, I could train this down like that, and that will grow on and grow out and become an extension. But you've got this kink in it, and that wouldn't look good. However, I have a growth here, I don't know if you can see, that we're growing well, so that will need tying in. So this I will cut off like that there, and I'll cut this one off here. And let's go to one where we've got more example of lots of growth that can be cut off. You can see on this pear, we've got strong vertical growth coming up from last year's pruning. And this is very vigorous. It's ruining the shape and also won't bear any fruit for a few years because there are no spurs. And pears and apples fruit on spurs. And we can encourage that by pruning that off, like that. And this one here, that can come off. And I'm leaving just a stump which can form as a spur. And what this is doing, as much as tidying and shaping it, is letting light and air in. So the fruit that have formed get maximum sunshine and good ventilation so it can grow and ripen healthily. And it is really important to remember that basic rule of pruning. If you prune in summer, you restrict growth. If you prune hard in winter, you encourage growth. Now, trained fruit in some form or other has been in fashion really from medieval times, and I think will always remain fashionable to some extent. But you certainly can't say that about summer bedding. The Victorians loved it, but it has been truly out of fashion for the last generation or so. And perhaps now is the time for a resurgence. So Joe Swift has been along to see what some contemporary bedding might look like.
If there's one group of plants that really pumps out the colour, can energise you and certainly lets you know the summer's here, even on a dull day like this, it's summer bedding. They have such a traditional tag that, well, reinventing them and incorporating them into modern gardens is tricky. This site is a summer showcase, and the first thing that really hits me is whilst being displayed as summer bedding is a much broader range of plants than you'd expect. Now, I'm all for reinventing the way we use plants, and green walls, they're relatively new and there are lots of different systems now. So you can buy modules like this, they slot onto the wall. They've got built-in irrigation systems, which is absolutely crucial that these plants get watered regularly or they'll die, and then you can just plant them up. But these make it nice and simple, and they can be reused year on year. I've seen perennials planted up, I've seen herbs planted up, but bedding plants like this works just as well too. Now, this wall looks pretty impressive. It's done on quite a large scale. I think at home you'd probably do something a lot smaller. For me, contemporary gardens are a little bit more simple, so maybe just take the silver of the cineraria and the dark purpley black of the ipomaea and just use those two together. And over there, well, we've got a wall of proper bedding colour. But you can see, really, that this whole idea is what you want to make it. You know, what plants you want to grow in your garden and treat it like a piece of artwork that changes every year on your wall. Now, a well-known gardening presenter was, well, less than flattering, shall we say, about begonias. Yeah, sure. You know, they come in such a range of colours and they have that traditional tag, but I do think that some plants are worth revisiting because they have lots of new varieties, but you've got to really edit them down and look at each variety and what qualities it can give you in your garden. So this one, Begonia griffon, is all about the foliage. So we've got these deeply cut leaves that are sort of mottled and slightly variegated on the top, which gives a good texture. But underneath, they've got a lovely mahogany deep veining to them and a glossiness as well. And the combination works really well. This is a great foliage plant. Now, this is a new one, Santa Barbara. And what I like about this is the proportion of foliage to flower and the scale of them both as well. Begonias tend to have really big, blousy flowers, but this is much more delicate, much more subtle. This one, on the other hand, is a really dramatic plant. It's a statement plant all by itself. Dark foliage and those bright orange, fiery flowers shoot you off to the tropics. Well, this is more traditional looking to me visually, but this is a new introduction and it's got scent, and it's got a very good scent too. It's like a sort of light, fragrant rose, and altogether those blooms are really kicking it out. So, you know, always revisit because there are new introductions and some of them are not what you expect from a begonia. Now, when you go buying bedding plants, it's easy to get carried away, you know, and just start filling up your trolley and ending up with every colour under the sun. But here they've got these displays that really help you focus on colours and the moods that they create. So here it's really simple, lots and lots of greens, the odd bit of white, some yellows splashed in there as well. And this is very relaxing. I could live with this cool colour theme all summer long. Here we've got something really cheery. We've got the yellow coreopsis working nicely with the velvety petunia here. There's the odd orange in there, just little shots of colour. But it's still a restricted palette and those colours are working nicely together. Now, I've been having a good look around, and what's interesting to me is that we've got the usual suspects, things like marigolds, geraniums, snapdragons, but there's also lots of other plants too, things like lavenders, echinaceas, perennial salvias. So, you know, bedding isn't just about annual plants, it's pretty much anything that's going to create seasonal impact. And I want to get a little bit more creative in how I plant and put a display together. I think in terms of reinventing our summer bedding, maybe we need to catch up with an ever-increasing range of plants and some new varieties. Now, I had a sort of light bulb moment with this bedding and I've really enjoyed putting it together because I started thinking, how can I reinvent it? How can I try and do something different? because here it's all planted in blocks. And I know that they're showcasing different plants so you can see the difference between them. But by doing this and sort of liberating the plants and doing what I'd call a mini prairie bedding scheme, they feel free and they feel fresh. So we've got things like these dahlias, and they're going to get nice and tall and keep flowering through the summer. Sweet Williams, which I haven't used for years, and I have to say, coming up here, I've sort of fallen in love with them again. The ageranthums, these lovely daisies, and then the bright orange zinnias too. And as the summer progresses, this is just going to explode. It's going to get bigger and it's going to get wilder. I have so enjoyed putting this together. And I think that's the thing about bedding. Sometimes you have to throw tradition out the window, do your own thing, and just enjoy it.
Although the idea of bedding displays did go out of fashion, a lot of us use bedding without sort of even being aware that that's what we're doing. I use tender annuals, for example, like cosmos, like sunflowers, like leonotis, zinnias, to spot in colour. They only last for a few months and then they're put onto the compost heap. So it's the same idea, but just mixed in with a different style of planting. Well, from lovely bedding plants to really very, very unlovely box blight. Now this is a running saga. It's been going on now for 3 years here at Longmeadow. Last year we had the RHS expert here to advise us on the next step. And one of his points was to let air into any hedge. So we halved most of our box hedges, including this one. So it was up here. It looked terrible, but we've also fed all our box in the garden once a week with liquid seaweed. And it is responding well. There is fresh regrowth from what looked like absolutely bare wood, and so far, most of that regrowth is not affected, but some of it is. These smaller hedges, which were also halved, have regrown, but the box blight has come back, and come back very typically in these patches. And I'm often asked, how do you recognise box blight? Blight manifests itself as patches of brown dead leaves, but it's very characteristically either like a scorch mark up the side of a hedge or an area in the middle of it. However, since we had the advice from the RHS, they are growing well. And the big hedge is a particularly tough variety called Hansworthiensis, which has got really thick leaves. So it's got quite good defence against blight. But really what we want to see is if the new growth gets blight or it's just the old growth. So that's for a continuing future. This is for your present. So brace yourself. Here are some jobs for the weekend. Courgettes are prone to powdery mildew if they get too dry. So give them a really good drink, being sure to aim the water at the base of the plant, not over the fruits or the leaves. And then if you have any fruits that are big enough to pick, do so and keep picking them, because a small courgette can very quickly become a whopping great marrow. I know I've said this before, but it really is a good job to do, and that is deadheading. Any of your flowers that you want to continue all summer long, cut back as soon as they start to fade. And don't just snip the flower head off, but go right back to the next bud or leaf axil. And this will provoke fresh new blooms very quickly. As the flowers of Mediterranean herbs like thyme and marjoram start to fade, trim some of the herbs back. This will stop the plants getting too leggy, as well as provoke new leaves that are fresh and good for cooking. And by only doing some of the herbs at any one go, you're not denying yourself a constant supply of herbs for the kitchen. And Mediterranean herbs love this hot weather, but they do have a tendency to get rather woody, so you get fewer leaves. But basil is not Mediterranean. Basil comes from the Far East, and it likes wet, warm weather. So I've got some growing in the cold frame here. And what I do is just cut it off about 3/4 of the way down. And so you will get some regrowth. But it's an annual and has no tolerance of cold whatsoever. So it won't survive beyond about September. But the difference between these plants and the sort that you can buy where you get up to 20 little seedlings in a pot is huge. I can get really good pickings over and over again from these. Right, the best way to store basil is as pesto. It's a pity to waste herbs that are perfectly edible when you cut them off, but quite hard to keep some of them. A tip for keeping things like marjoram or thyme is just take the leaves off and pop them in an ice cube and freeze them. And then if you want to cook with them, you just pop the ice cube into the soup or the stew or whatever it is, and that gives you the flavour. But with basil, you need pesto. Everybody needs pesto, and it's so easy to make. What you need to do is strip the leaves, and you can see these are wilting already. You need to be quick. We want nice, firm leaves that are uniform green. You don't want them thick, you don't want the yellowing, and if possible, not too limp. There are the leaves. I'm going to add a little bit of salt. This is sea salt, and that acts as an abrasive. This is the garlic I harvested a few weeks ago. Pop that in and just grind that a bit. And then start adding the leaves. If you're using a food processor, which we normally do for a larger amount, don't put it on continuous, put it onto pulse. Just boom, 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 and all you want to do is just break it up. If you do it too much, it turns into a kind of green slurry. Right, we'll add the pine nuts, and we'll add grated Parmesan, although pecorino's good too, and sometimes we use half and half. So add that in. Now at this point, I want to start to add the oil. I've got 100 millilitres of olive oil. Dribble it in. It's smelling fantastic. Really good. There you are. That's good. That is so rich and intense. You can't buy that, but you can grow it, and it's dead easy to make. And you can make this just as well with rocket. You can do it with parsley. You can use walnuts with parsley instead of the pine nuts. You can use goat's cheese. You can use cheddar. As long as you've got a green herb or a strong taste with a nut and some cheese and some oil, it works. Well, that's it for today, and I'll see you back here at Long Meadow next time. Till then, bye-bye. Come on, Nigel. Come on.